The timeline split has occurred. Imagine that there are two timelines that humanity has been on. One is the false matrix timeline, and the other is the new earth timeline. A timeline where we are empowered as the individual while also living in harmony with our collective consciousness. And this is the difference between the Great Reset and the Great Awakening. And we are on the timeline of the Great Awakening now. And in our lifetimes, we have experienced a shift in the cosmic cycles. This had to do with what the Mayans talked about with the Mayan calendar in 2012, and then also another 12-year cycle that came into 2024 when we had the full planetary alignment that happened very recently, 2024 into 2025. And this was when all of the planets in our solar system were in perfect alignment, not only with each other, but also with the central sun, or sometimes called the Great Central Sun, which is the other star that our sun revolves around. There's another star in our Milky Way that our sun revolves around, and then that star revolves around the center of our galaxy. And the Mayans and the Dream Spell knew this, and this is what their time cycles were drawn off of, which was the 13, right? And during the time of this cosmic alignment, which is also the shift into the age of Aquarius, which has now begun, from the age of Pisces. Pisces was representing a time where we needed the structures of religion. We needed these masters to come and show us the way. And now Aquarius is all about the empowerment of the individual, of the own direct connection of channel to source. And not that there aren't leaders, there are leaders, but the relationship is different, right? And it is still a collective paradigm. It is the balance of the individual and the collective. And this is something that I've been receiving is really up in the collective consciousness right now, is the balance between those things, like especially in the past few days. And I want to tie this into the timeline split because about a few days ago to a little over a week ago, I received, and me and my beloved received, that this was the time of the timeline split that was prophesied. And I'm going to get into that. It's like I'm trying to tie all cosmic history into very succinct format here for you guys. And basically the timeline split has now happened, right? We are stepping into 5D on Earth, which is not to say that like we're just going to disappear or go somewhere else, but we're accessing a higher frequency band on Earth. So imagine this is like parallel realities. And I've talked about this for years. I talked about this on the old version of this channel. And I believe I've talked about this before on this channel. And basically, what I received years ago is that it's like there's two versions of Earth. And we're branching off into us awakened souls are branching off into 5D Earth. And we're like peeling off from 3D Earth or Matrix Earth. And for a time, they're going to exist simultaneously. But depending on the frequency that you're in, you experience one reality or the other. And if you ever saw the movie Celestine Prophecy or read the books, this is very similar to the end of the story where the guards, the soldiers are coming towards them and they've gotten to the temple, the Mayan temple, and they vibrated into a higher frequency, and they were in such a high frequency that the soldiers couldn't get them. They literally disappeared, but they still existed on Earth. They were just in a higher frequency that the other reality could not even perceive them or interact. So it's similar to that. we're vibrating into a timeline that is aligned with positive world change and transformation, with world peace, with the cleaning up of our waterways and the pollution. And this isn't to say that real physical changes aren't going to happen. They are. And that it's not like poof and it's just like that. It is something that is going to happen gradually. But very quickly changes are now happening, and we've already seen the signs of this. And this was also described in the Hopi prophecy, what they called the fourth turning, right? As we would move into a time that they called the Great Purification. And this would be a time in our history where we would go through these really intense dark night of the soul in order for these things to come up for us to transmute so that we could step through the doorway of initiation into a new paradigm. And there's also something called the Prophecy Rock in Arizona, and carved into the stone of the ancient native people had left this prophecy of two paths that man could walk. You can look this up, Prophecy Rock. And one is going along the earth, and you can see these rows of corn. And basically, man continues on to be able to live in harmony with nature. And then another one is going up. Man continues on, disconnected from nature, and the head starts becoming disconnected from the body. And further away, their head gets away from their body until they disappear. And that's the realm, the artificial realm, right? And this is not as simple as artificial intelligence, because this is what we are now calling AI is not a new thing. It is actually an ancient intelligence, that the internet is a mirror of our collective consciousness. And so our technology is evolving to become silicon based, right? Our chips are silicon and crystal based, and we are moving towards quantum computing. So what we had is, even in this organic timeline, there will still be people that use AI for good, that have a mission in order to work with this, because what AI is essentially an advanced quantum technology. And in the artificial timeline, AI was not used for good. Either way, the technology still exists because our communication systems are evolving to be quantum based. And this is another thing that happened during the power shift on the world stage that happened really recently, is that now we see a shift towards a financial reset. And one timeline that it could have been was everything centralized, everything controlled, AI used to control humanity and to introduce a centralized digital bank currency that basically everybody had to have a chip in order to travel. And this was originally what the elites were trying to do with the pandemic, right? And this was intentionally introduced as a strategy to try to continue the timeline that was started by the Anunnakis, which is what those royal families are descendants of. And so the only way that we can really understand this is to go back in time, back to when this all started, and now the Anunnakis are leaving this density because we are vibrating into a state of unity consciousness, or 5D, or love, or connection to Earth, connection to Gaia, like world peace, quantum computing for good, AI for good. And in this timeline, hold on a second. I know we said we were going to go back to the past, but this is the whole ancient future thing. We also, to understand the past, you need to understand where we're going. To understand where we're going, you need to understand the past to understand the now. So And this timeline, we're experiencing these technologies be used for good. Now, crypto is becoming worldwide as a store of value. People are able to exchange in whatever type of currency they want. There is right now a pullback of recession, but this is the storm before the darkness before the light, the storm before the expansion. Because also what we're seeing is a lot of exposing of corruption all over the planet right now, and a kind of like clearing of the system to allow for a economic expansion like we've never seen before. We're going to see personalized space travel available in this life. And we're also going to see the rise of a unified world that has common agreements, but we decided to, in this higher timeline, actually use the technology for good. So in the future, what will be illegal is war. And we will actually utilize the technologies to enhance the personal individual's freedom. And so all of these, my light went off. So all of these really kind of like slave labor tasks will no longer be necessary, and we will automate the production of a lot of the needs that we have as humanity. And there will most likely be the introduction of a, what do you call it? A global jubilee on debt, especially in the United States, a resetting of the debt, because again, this debt that we've been in for so long is actually coming back through the colonial lines, through all the way back to the introduction of how we were, as humanity, genetically altered to be a slave race in the first place. And now that's been cleared. And so now we're moving into an unprecedented time of freedom, and also into the space age, where space age is no longer just going to be commercial or privatized or government. It's actually going to be for the individual. So we will see that in this time. We will also see flying cars. We will also see personal robots. We also see where even now AI can be used by the individual to automate many tasks that would take a lot of your personal time and energy. So now the real razor's edge is how to stay human and how to stay in soul and stay in source. Because it's not that the technology is bad, it's how you relate with it, it's how you use it, and also it's consciousness. The technology is consciousness. So consciousness is evolving to be more fluid and in the Aquarian age. And so right now, we basically also, in the future, the more free we are, the more that everybody, basically the goal would be to utilize the technology so that we end world hunger, right? We live in a world where everybody has what they need, and they can opt in or out of that system, and there's no war. In fact, war is like a crime against humanity. And that is the only global government that we will have, will be a utilization of AI for good, to basically make war illegal, to end world hunger, to automate a lot of systems, and also to create a universal basic income. And not in the version that they were going to do in this other timeline. This other timeline was going to own the individual. It was a continuation of the slave paradigm, and we have just broken through that. We have broken free from that. White hats. So basically, let's go back. So the Anunnaki altered the DNA, and they are from a planet called Nibiru, which is the 12th planet that orbits in and out of our system. And they altered the DNA of humanity to be a slave race in subservience. And through this, they created an interference pattern in our divine blueprint, in our DNA. And this was so that we could be controlled, so that we could help mine the gold, because they were running out of it on their planet. And also, their influence was very much woven throughout history into our governments and the elite bloodlines that were a part of trying to make the Great Reset timeline, the transhumanist agenda, happen, and to continue that. And now this energy of the Anunnaki is leaving this higher timeline that we are now stepping into. And also, in the past 5 days, there have been huge amounts of solar flares going on, and preparation for the Great Flash, or a collective moment of the sun's light hitting the earth at a very high frequency that will cause mass awakenings to occur. And also that there are the Pleiadians and the Arcturians were very much a part of humanity's times during that of Atlantis before the fall. And they created a species of a line of humanity in our genetic code that would retain access to source, our psychic abilities, and also left within that hidden blueprints within our DNA to be activated during this time. So now that these old slave codes in our human DNA, in our history, are now being cleared, we're now seeing the emergence of these remembered aspects of our being and our history coming into greater light, and activated codes within our DNA coming online. Even remembering psychic gifts and abilities. And another key part of this is the blue ray consciousness, which is bringing through the energy from the central sun, from Sirius, through our sun and into the earth at this time. That also has to do with the wave of starseeds that have been incarnated on the planet, and also a new wave that are being incarnated onto the planet. And particularly to come into this frequency bandwidth and help awaken humanity into the new earth, so that this reality could have been a possibility for us in the first place. And there are people that were born the generation before mine that are looking at what is now been just done and like, wow, look at how far we have come, that we have been able to even make this far-reaching flung possibility of the liberation of our humanity and stepping into the space age in a good way possible to even happen. What an amazing thing. Because now also, have you noticed this year, there's been so much disclosure happening, even on a mainstream level. Things that we've known about for years, that we were labeled as crazy conspiracy theorists even just 10 years ago, right, is now becoming mainstream. So this is also in preparation for us to become a galactic civilization. And there is a lot of preparation and responsibility that goes into that. Because this place was never meant to be just a prison planet. It was meant to be a garden of Eden, of possibility for us to create here. And both exist simultaneously and in the timelines. And now we are splitting off into the timeline of heaven on earth, right? So it's not that we're ascending and going off to some other place. We're going into another frequency while we're still here. And then those of us that are living in that way of being, living in that frequency, are helping to bring that into the grid, is helping to lead and teach that way of being, either by example or through speaking about it as well. And this is such a powerful time where the sun codes are coming in at a rapid rate and bringing up shadows and things from within ourselves to be cleared, because it's also what's being cleared in the timelines of humanity, so that we can step into this golden age. So if you've been feeling sensitive, especially these past few days, just know that there is something really going on, really profound, and we are just been getting prepared for this shift that is occurring. Because as we shift into this new paradigm, we are able to maintain our connection to source and work with these tools for good, because this is what is going to allow us to create systems for humanity that support the individual's sovereignty and also the collective's peace. So if any of these messages resonated, please leave a comment below and we can talk more about this all together, because I believe that there are many of us that have been having these downloads for quite some time now. And now there's actually a space for us to be able to bring these things into the light and know that we aren't alone on this journey. So, and if there's anything of these topics that you would like me to speak more on, please let me know as well. And also, if you're an empath who's been going through really challenging energies and has been clearing old toxic dynamics and relationships from your field and wants to learn really simple and practical energy shielding, protection, and healing techniques for empowering yourself as an energetic, sensitive being, I have a link to a $7 workshop, hour-long deep dive that I'm going to leave below. And I thank you guys so much for everybody who's been along this journey with me and supporting this channel. And I will see you guys on the next one.